Welcome everybody, my name is Andy. I am one of the co-hosts with one of my best friends, Sonny, and we run a podcast called Business Over Chai. The impetus for our podcast is that we want to inspire the next generation of entrepreneurs across the South Asian community.
Yeah, it's quite a funny story actually. So the Business Over Chai podcast was born in COVID pandemic. There's not a lot of great things, but this was one of them as well, I hope to say.
Yeah.
Andy was working and living in San Francisco at the time, and he said, Sonny, do you want to do this podcast? I was like, yeah, great, let's do it, and jumped on the idea, and I guess one thing led to another.
Yeah, so 2021 we launched our podcast, we're about 15 episodes in, and a bit about Sonny and I, we love entrepreneurship generally. I think our friends also do, and some of you guys are here. But Sonny and I specifically, we know each other since we were at school. And our first, foray into entrepreneurship was actually selling samosas. So we sold them to our school teachers, students, for a bit of money. I think we didn't really make much, maybe we broke even, I don't really remember. But it was a really cool experience, and from there we even started up our own little DJ companies. As some of you may know, we love music, specifically Indian or Bhangra music, so I know Varun, you love a bit of Bhangra as well, and a bit of dancing actually. Should check out this.
Don't tempt me.
We really love entrepreneurship, and that was kind of really the reason why we wanted to start this.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, we're still quite involved in entrepreneurship and startup space. So Andy has actually started a couple of businesses, and I hope you've listened to the advice of our previous guest, Andy. And as well as that, Andy works in this very building at Aeon. And I'm a venture capital investor, so I invest in early stage and growth stage technology companies here in London.
Yeah, so that's probably enough about us. You're probably more interested in these three guys because they're much more cooler than we are. And we've also got, just to call out, we have family and friends here as well. Thank you for filling seats. We probably wouldn't have had this many people if you guys weren't here, so we appreciate my fiance, my cousin's families and friends that are here. Unfortunately, Sonny's wife wasn't here today, but she's had another conflict. But yeah, thank you for supporting us.
Yeah, and just to give you a bit of a flavour of your audience, of yourselves, right? So from a professional background, we've got consultants in the room, finance people in the room, lawyers in the room, bankers in the room, some other kind of careers as well. So medical professionals we've got in the room as well. Maybe you might want to talk to some of them maybe from the medical profession. And then also, of course, we've got entrepreneurs in the room. So thank you so much to all of you for coming.
Yeah, so thank you so much again. If you are sharing anything on social media, you can tag us in Business Over Chai and also these wonderful guests as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to try and keep it kind of free-flowing, the panel discussion as much as possible, but we have got a brief kind of agenda to follow. So, just to talk about the start of your businesses and then also the business validation stage, then kind of how you grew and scale your businesses, how your business is doing now and the future. And then, of course, we've got a Q&A with the lovely selves at the end as well. But now, if it's okay, we would love for our panel to introduce themselves. So shall we start with Dhruvin?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, I'm Dhruvin Patel. I'm an optometrist and also the founder at Ocushield, that logo on your top left. Our business, or my business, focuses on letting the eyes thrive. We create products that protect people's eyes from digital eye strain and allow their eyes to not feel tired or stressed after screen use. We are a direct-to-consumer brand, so most of our business is via our website. We have two other key channels as well. One is Amazon and the third is B2B and retail. In terms of demographics, 40% of our business is from the States, 50% in the UK and 10% the rest of the world. You can find our products in stores like John Lewis. We also sell to employers like JP Morgan and Facebook, our products to look after their employees' eyes.
Thanks, Dhruvin. And now Sonya?
So my name is Sonya Barlow. I am an award-winning entrepreneur. I founded the NMF Network, which started in 2018 as a brunch club because I was isolated, a bit of a loner, and wanted friends. And then in 2020, I decided to convert it to a consultancy business. So to date, We have we are an inclusion advisory and careers platform. We've supported 50 partners over 24 countries, upskilled 20,000 people, launched the UK's largest mentoring programme with a 98% success rate. Outside of that, I'm a BBC radio presenter, a best-selling author, content creator. I've just started my own YouTube vlog. And I want to bridge the skills gap really fundamentally. One is to go back to people and build their confidence so they know what the hell they can do in their careers, upskill their capabilities so they can make the right decisions. But two, and most importantly, go to workspaces who are diverse and inclusive, but actually to redefine what that means for them so they can actually not only attract diverse staff, but retain diverse staff, and therefore increase their products and productivity by 30%.
Thanks, Sonya. And finally,
Hi everyone, my name is Varun Bhanot. On Instagram, that's at Varun Bhangra. I should probably make it a bit more professional now, I suppose. And I'm the founder or co-founder of Magic, our URL magic.fit, FIT. We're essentially the Peloton, but for strength and personal training. We are essentially a smart mirror in your home that you, when it's off, it looks like something that you might buy from IKEA. You turn it on, and suddenly you see a hologram inside, and you see virtual personal trainers who coach you. Where things really get interesting is that there's an AI camera built inside, so when you're working out, it will track your form, give you live feedback, count your reps, it will correct you when you're doing it wrong. It will essentially replace what you pay a personal trainer for in the gym. We're replacing that, but using AI. All of our content is created by people who are world class at what they do. So we have the former England cricket captain, Sir Alistair Cook, doing a programme about how he builds up his strength and his arms and his legs. With a number of Team GB Olympians who show their secrets, and the idea is that we're trying to build like a masterclass around the content. Similar to Dhruvin, actually, we launched in Selfridges last year. We're just about to launch in Westfield, but we actually closed our first round of funding just a few months ago. So this is actually our launch phase. So very early, very scary, and I hope to tell you about some of the pains and dangers, I suppose, along the way.
we'll definitely get to those. But again, personal training, I'm going to speak to you about that personally later on as well. So who wants to go first?
Before you start, I think, to make this really interesting, you can bounce off each other, and if you find something controversial, I think we should just open up a bit, no? What attracted you to start your first business?
Okay, I'll go first. I got fired. That is why I started a business.
That's a good reason.
Yeah, I got fired twice, sadly, in 2 years. I know, it's so sad, isn't it? So I really simply graduated in 2015, felt off social media. I felt like an imposter in the workplace. I worked in tech consultancy, did the day-to-day management consultancy, went around Europe, loved business travel, and really ate the best food on my clients' expense. And thought that I wanted to grow in that career. I tried really hard, but as a confident, ambitious woman, but also with an entrepreneurial mindset, I think I was just a little bit too fast-paced for the workspace, but also I wasn't really able to conform in the way that they wanted me to. And maybe in hindsight, I wasn't the best employee, but I was always a good entrepreneur. And just to go on that point, when I lost my job in 2018 and 2019, I guess I just didn't want to make it 3 out of 3. So I knew what the challenges were when it came to companies who wanted to be inclusive. In the background, I'd already been building this community, and I'd had companies like Royal Mail, Santander actually reach out for me to go and deliver workshops. So as soon as I lost my job around September, October 2019, my first clients were PwC and King from the founders of Candy Crush. And so I knew I was onto something. I'm not going to pretend like I knew what it was, but I was onto something. And I went home to my family and my partner. I said, look, I think I'm onto something, and I want to give this a shot. And so we decided to give this a 12-month shot. And if it didn't work in 12 months, and what didn't work is if I didn't make the first salary I made, which was 30K, I would go back into a corporate world. So that's really my story and the simplicity of it. I didn't come out to be a business owner. I didn't think about being a business owner, but due to circumstances beyond my control, it was the best thing to happen to me. And ironically, if you want to know more, I actually have a TED talk because I failed so much called Failure Comes Before Resilience. So I think everything just comes full circle in that way.
That's really awesome. I will ask you a question afterwards, a bit later on. But Varun, I heard your podcast yesterday with at the BAE, British Asian Entrepreneurs. He's in the house. I don't know where he is yet.
Oh no.
Love your stuff. And you talked about just Magic Fitness called Magic.fit, and it was really interesting because you kind of started off saying, you know, I was in a certain place in my life, I wasn't living healthy, and I wanted to change that and be part of, you know, the transformation that personal trainers could have. Could you share a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, before I got into startups, I'm the same age as I think Dhruvin and a few others. And when I was at uni, there was no such thing as startups or tech, right? It was like you go and work for a corporate, and that's about it. Which is exactly what I did. I went to work for an investment bank, and I remember reading this quote when I was there, which is, "Some people die at the age of 25, but they don't get buried until they're 80." And it sort of struck a chord with me when I was sort of sitting in my box office thinking, you know, is this all life's going to be? So I left and joined a very young startup in London. By the way, this isn't a time when there's no delivery. This is 2014. There's no delivery. There's no Airbnb. There's no Monzo Bank. No Revolut. There's a startup called Hubble. I basically went to work there for free. As employee number one, and ended up getting a job and I guess learning how the ropes behind how you build a tech business. But building that startup was very stressful, and I sort of let myself go a lot, and you know, wasn't eating healthily, I'd never been into the gym in my life, to be honest. I'd never lifted a dumbbell, found it too intimidating. So I just put myself through a training program in a gym in London, and lost, I think, about 20% or 25% of my body fat over the course of like 12 weeks, which, by the way, for me was a big deal because I was never into all this sort of stuff. And when I was in the gym with a personal trainer, I realised, like, everything we're doing here could just be automated with technology, right? You've got a personal trainer standing there with a clipboard and pen, he's manually counting your reps and giving you feedback. The technology, the weights you're using are literally called dumbbells because they're dumb. There's no smart bells, there's no smart technology here. So that was like the seed of the idea, which led me and my co-founder, who's also at Hubble, to leave, and then we started working on Magic. So it's driven by like an innate purpose, that it's inspired by like our own personal stories, but it's also driven by that sort of higher purpose that we're not here forever. We might as well leave our mark in some way, right? And if it fails, then at least you took that shot when you had it. So yeah.
Great, thanks for that. And I know a little bit about your story now, because we went to the same university, but can you share it with our audience, please?
Yeah, sure. So I guess for me, one of the reasons why I went into business was I'm from a working class background. I've grown up seeing my parents work very hard. And at some point when I was younger, I mean, I did get a lot of pocket money as well, that also contributed. But I thought the only way to get money is not to work a job, is to have a business. That was kind of, I had that perception when I was younger. So whenever I was growing up, there was always pockets where I thought there's an idea or something to be done, you know, whenever, if you're selling something in school or whether it was creating a website. And, you know, I used to illegally sell music online before it came available. So this was before the limelight.
That was you, was it?
Yeah, probably. And it was funny because I tried to hoax Google into paying me ad revenue money on music that I did not own. Anyway, so always had a room for pocket for ideas, and I went into university, so did optometry. Probably did it because my parents wanted me to go into the health profession, and I wasn't smart enough to get into dentistry or medicine. Optometry somehow accepted me. And I was working on the weekends at Vision Express at the time, and the lead optometrist, she gathered the team, including myself, said, "Hey, we've got this new product innovation for people that wear glasses." And she said it was a coating called Blue Control, and if patients put this on their glasses, they would be able to have less eye strain and work better. And I was naturally intrigued because I've grown up with my mum telling me, like, looking at screens is bad for your eyes, right? But she didn't really have a reason for it. So I ran back to the university and I demanded from the faculty that I did some research. So somehow I got my way and I did some research on how artificial blue light causes your circadian rhythm to change and your eyes' physiology. And after doing that, I found that not only did this artificial light affect our eyes, but it also suppressed melatonin, which made it harder to sleep. So at that moment, I was like, well, two massive pain points. This was the iPhone 3 era. You know, this was back in 2013 to 15. And I just thought, I don't wear glasses, so how can I take this technology and put it onto a screen directly itself? And that's where I had the idea, and I kind of ran with it. I didn't think about, I need this funding, da, da, da. I was just like, I need to create products first and foremost for myself, because I want it, and hopefully there'll be other people like me that want this product. I didn't do any market research, none of that. I was just focused on creating the first product.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, that's awesome. So, thank you for the introduction. I want to just ask the room a question. Hands up, those that have started a business at least once in their life. Just hands up. Okay, so we've got about 40, 50%. Yeah. Okay, and then keep your hands up if you still have an actively trading business. Okay. All right, so it's about half. All right, that's good. It's just good to know in the room, like, who are actually setting up their business. All right, awesome. So let's just a question to this panel. What advice would you give to people who are just remotely interested in starting their business, perhaps being put off by family members or friends or their network? Where do you get that reassurance from as well?
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. I think for me, what I really benefited from was starting a business while I was studying and working. So I started when I was at university, I started when I was doing my pre-registration year, and while I was qualifying as an optometrist. So I was getting money coming in while I could do the business on the side. And, you can go all in and quit your job and, start your business, but there'll be pressures that you probably haven't felt before when you do that. So you've either got to have a lot of money from our friend Sonya, from his venture capital firm, or you've got to have lots of savings there. So for me, it was a real pleasure to start a business without having the stresses of financial burden or anything like that. I could do it on the side. And then once the business grew big enough, like in 2018, I was able to say, right, I can go full time on the business. So I'd always say, if you can, start now, but do it while you're in a full-time job, or working or in university is the best time to start.
I would say I'd agree with everything Dhruvin says. I think it's about hedging your risk, right? I personally when I was in my old company, I managed to negotiate to go part-time, so could spend a few days with a job and then a couple of days working on the idea. And I'd reckon if you can, try and do that. It's not the easiest, obviously, in some jobs. And I'll never forget that day when I sort of nervously scheduled a meeting in with the CEO and sort of had my reasons why I was going to go part-time. And I think if you can hedge your risk like that, definitely try and do that. I think part of your question actually is when you're South Asian, there's this thing about keeping up appearances, right? And you're worried about what your parents and what the community and what your friends are going to say, right? If you just jump 2 feet into it, and I do think that is something that's always going to be there at the back of your head, and that's perfectly natural. I think that's been ingrained in our minds since we were born. But if you believe strongly in something, you might as well take a chance now, as I said earlier, because you're only going to get older. Liabilities are only going to go up in your life, right? Kids, house, mortgage, blah blah blah, car. So take these chances as you can, but be smart about it, right? Hedge your bets a little bit as well.
Yeah, and also know it's going to take time. It's not an overnight success. There's no such thing as an overnight success. It's whatever success means to you. I think that's really important. And just echoing what's been said already, I started, I kid you not, a brunch club because I liked avocados. That's how my business journey started. I didn't think about starting a business. What I thought about was, what's my problem? How do I solve my problem? And let me bring other people into it. When I went to work a little bit extra. They had free breakfast. I made the most of that, right? And during that time, I would do my emails. I would then do work. During lunchtime, I would do my emails or kind of use my time to make flyers or Instagram posts or whatever it was during that time. Do their work. And then after work, I would go network. I'd meet people. And rather than starting a business straight away or anything, I'd say, what is your problem? What brings you here? And listen to what problems were. And then once I understood their problems, I take my phone out and actually take notes. And I'd be like, this is a common problem that people have. How can I get them to come into whatever I'm building at that point? The second point was that you have annual leave. So the first workshop I did for Santander, the whole day. I didn't know you could get paid for it. I kid you not. They were like, we're going to pay for your train ticket and your lunch. And I was like, what, free lunch? Yes, I am down. I didn't know that people charge thousands of pounds to go and give corporate training. But that was the best experience because I took a day off, I took a risk on myself, I went to go see, on someone else's budget, if I actually even liked doing what I was doing. I got feedback, I enjoyed myself, and that was a great testimonial. And the third thing, kind of on the back of that was, what is your measure of success? My measure of success was not to be a millionaire. My measure of success literally was, what is the bare minimum I need to live? 12 to 30k. 12k because it's tax efficient, 30 is what I had in my first grad job. Let me try and make that over 12 months, and let me try a bunch of different things, and then filter to see which one works, and filter to see which one works, and then we'll see which one works. And I think my last thing would be, not every business needs to make a profit, or it needs to be about money. I do think entrepreneurship is so glamorized, and people are forgetting that they can just have a hobby. You can actually just have a hobby, and you can enjoy it, and you can take your time away from everything you do, and it doesn't need to have a business sense. It could just be something you're super passionate about. If you make a bit of money, cool. But it doesn't need to be either or, and I think we need to talk about that too.
And just on that point as well, I wanted to stress, like for me, when I started, I just thought, if I can replace my salary working as an optometrist, I've made it, because I can work on doing something I'm happy and passionate about. And now whenever I need to bring myself back down to earth, or I'm seeing, a unicorn business, I'm like, well, actually, when you started, all you wanted was this. You've achieved that. So, reflect on that and let that be what the goal is, and everything else is a bonus, right? That's how I look at things now.
No, that's really good. And, Business Over Try, the podcast, we've made no money out of it. This is all out of our own pockets. It's literally a hobby. We've done this from day one, and, it's just something that we love hearing stories about, literally. And I think if we can inspire at least one person out of this room today, we've done our job. And money down the road, maybe, I don't know. I can't, if it's offered, great. But I don't know how you feel about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you and echo what you say. I think it's important to have hobbies and things like that in your life, and do you know what doors can open for you potentially later on. The only thing I would say is I'm not sure how my boss as a VC will feel like a business is not making money. I don't think it'll be too popular with it, but no, clearly agree with what you're saying there. I guess we just want to move forward to the business validation stage now. And Dhruvin, you actually mentioned earlier when you first were designing Ocushield, you didn't do any kind of market research, you were doing it for yourself.
So my process was strange. So if I now look back, I went to see university like Sonya, and we had CAS Business School, which you studied at as well, Sonny. And they had a competition there called City Spark, which encouraged any students that had an idea to submit their idea to win initially £500 on the first round and then £5,000 on the second. And at the time when I had the idea, when that lead optometrist told me about this new coating for people that wore glasses, it was the same time I saw a poster which had submitted an idea. And that first stage, I got selected. There was 30 business ideas. We pitched up, had a poster, what the business was, and the public and students were just around coming in and they had to vote. And I remember I had a lecture just before this, and I went down to the bottom of the lecture and I told all of my student friends, I said, guys, I'm doing this pitch thing at CAS Business School, come and vote for me. And I kid you not, like 100 of them came to vote, and I think I won because of that. And then the second stage was where there was 50 tech entrepreneurs from London, and they had fake money to put in a box on which business they thought they would succeed. And I was the only team member with my idea, whereas there was other teams with 3 or 4 people, and all the judges had badges on them which said judge. So you could, I suppose about 10 out of 50 judges. So I thought I wouldn't win, but somehow I was fortunate enough to win. And I think for me, the validation came from those 2 experiences. So it wasn't a formal process, but that was market validation, because one, it was speaking to the public, even though a lot of them were my peers. Second was those tech entrepreneurs. So that, for me, gave me enough oomph to say, right, I need to go and do something, because people believe in me and the idea and the concept.
Yeah. That's really interesting. What about you, Barlow? From your perspective, how was that kind of product market fit or business validation stage?
So sort of classic startup methodology. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with the lean startup, but if you ever want to start particularly a tech company, I would highly recommend their approach. So what I did was I threw up a fake landing page just using Squarespace. I highly recommend Squarespace, by the way, if you want to test things, because it's very easy for you to do. So use a platform like that. I made a fake video showing what the product might do. It was fairly polished, so we did spend a little bit of money on it, like several £100. And just showed like the features and stuff like that, and then just put a simple email capture box saying sign up for the waiting list, and then I probably spent maybe £100 a week on sort of Facebook ads and ran that for maybe 3 months, and people started actually signing up, and I was like, they're literally signing up for a product that doesn't exist. It's completely made up. Right? It's just me sitting in my boxer shorts in my dad's basement, and that was when I was like, well, I don't know how much they'll pay. I don't know what parts of this product they really like, but there's clearly something worth pursuing in terms of getting a prototype together. Maybe like getting some and then maybe getting some users in to start testing it, and that's pretty much how the ball started rolling. I recruited my co-founder for my old company, and then we essentially started building the prototype from there, and then we went through a process of user testing when we were at a position to. But if you're at that early stage, I highly recommend just throwing up a simple landing page. It's much simpler than you think.
I was just thinking about that, Dhruvin, and the product you're making is not cheap, right? Like, imagine some sort of like tech wall where you've got a personal trainer. It's very capital intensive. How do you, and you've not been in Harvard, it sounds like you haven't been in Harvard, don't get me wrong, but like for somebody to just go into such a high risk sort of like venture, how do you go about
that? The first thing I did was actually leading on from that last sort of idea. So over the pandemic I sort of bootstrapped it by I threw up another landing page, and this time I was selling treadmills. So I managed to get hold of a couple hundred treadmills. They weren't like crazy expensive. Like I put basically all my savings into it actually, but they were about less than £100 each. Put up a landing page in Shopify, did the same thing, ran some Facebook ads and Instagram ads, and we sold all 200. Made about I was looking at it the other day because I had to do my tax return, but I think it was about 50k, something like that. And then used the proceeds to basically fund the prototype, which we eventually took to investors earlier this year, and then we raised our first round of venture capital from there. That's an example because what we're doing is very, very expensive. It's hardware, there's AI software, there's content. If you're doing something much simpler, you could probably get started with much less, right? The number I often hear is 15k is the absolute max that most people get started with less than that.
Yep. No, that's that's really interesting. So it's really inspiring actually, at least for me, to go into thinking about it, and just to hear that you just sold treadmills for what you bought for less than £100 and then made 50k out of it.
We sold them for about 400 each. Yeah.
That's impressive. Cool. And then Sonya, you're in quite I'd say it's a different type of business. So we've got like product, we've got tech, and now we've got kind of like consulting or services based. And I heard you recently speak on another podcast recently, and you talked about your setting your rate and discovering like you didn't know your rate, and then you kind of allowed the customer to set your rate, and you're like, okay, this is how much worth. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question. So what I would say is, when you run an advisory business or a consultancy business, a lot of it you are selling yourself in the nicest way, and there's moments where that also gets quite overwhelming. So at the start of the year, I was like, you know what, I'm going to go into ed tech, I'm going to create a product, I'm going to like e-learn this stuff, and there's an element of that we are doing, but I had to take a step back because I was like, I'm basically starting from point zero, and that doesn't make any sense. I have something, let's carry on. So when I started setting my rates and charging for services, I tapped back into my consultancy brain, and I was like, actually, that served me well, I should think about the skills I'm transferring. And for context, the first workshop I ever got was with PwC. And this is going to go live. They probably don't know this, so this is great. But I told you, we started in 2018. Then in 2019 January, I had that workshop with Royal Mail. I had the workshop with Santander. I also had a lunch and learn with Royal Mail. Again, free food, right? I didn't know you could charge anything. 9 months later, when I've lost my job, I'm sitting there super depressed and very unhappy with life. And I'm like, what can I tap into? And so I decided to do an event called Women in VR. And so I hosted that in October, roughly, in 2019. And I could shoot my shot. I had nothing to lose, right? So I literally went, got 5 women in VR, smashing products, doing insane great amounts. Went on LinkedIn, because at that point I started using LinkedIn. So I only really started using LinkedIn back end of 2019 when I had to. I emailed everybody I knew. Messaged everyone I knew, hey, I'm doing this event called Women in VR, I think it'd be great, you really enjoy it, would you like to come through? I must have sent like 500 emails, and I think about 80 people came. And that was to get myself out of the funk. That's all that was. This dude from PwC came, and he's like, I manage the VR team, we are looking to attract more women into VR. Do you do these kind of services? And in my head I'm like, I absolutely don't, but I was like, of course I do. What are you looking for? And I really let the customer I made it very customer-centric. I let him kind of propose what he wanted, and I was there taking notes and notes. What I didn't say, and I'm really glad because I'm not that kind of person, but I'm learning to be more business professional, I didn't say yes or no. What I said was, thank you so much for sharing your details with me. I will have a follow-up email, and I'll send you some proposals. Proposals don't have to be a fancy deck. I literally just regurgitated what he said in bullet points and said, this is what you're looking for. This is what I think you said. Can I confirm? And at the end, I was like, what do you think your budgets are? Now I'm thinking they're coming along being like a couple of £100. I would have done it for a couple of £100, right? So he came and he was like, oh, it's about 1,200. I was like, you would have given me £1,200 for a workshop I've never done. So I was just cheeky, and I was like, our normal rates are about 2K. But for you, we're willing to give you a discount. He's like, fine, 1,500. So I know I got extra money from this person that I've never done, but I was able to negotiate. So that's the first thing, right? Always shoot your shot. The second thing is I wasn't fibbing. I had been doing workshops and events and training for the last 18 months. I just hadn't packaged them into a service. So what I did is I went and I created everything from scratch, did tons of research. It took about a week to do that. I then did a week worth of practicing. Anyone I could find. My family. My mum is super tired of the work I do right now, and she can probably say the same thing. My siblings, my mentors, my advisors. I even started practicing on video and then watching myself back. And then when I got there on that day, I not only did the workshop, but I started facilitating. And what I mean is I didn't talk at them. I wasn't a lecturer. I started questioning them. That made me feel more comfortable and confident. That made them feel more comfortable and confident. And then I got a testimonial. After that testimonial, King came. Again, I tried the same thing. I remember it so clearly. I woke up one day and it was like an 8 a.m. phone call. Don't know why anyone does that. Fine. Picked it up. And they were like, hi Sonya, this is X person from King. Someone from that Santander or Royal Mail workshop 9 months ago recommended you. We're looking for an EDI specialist. You've been recommended. That's how sometimes skill swapping and doing free work really does help. Do you think you'll be available next week? And I was like, yeah, absolutely. What's the location and what's the budget? And they were like, well, it's in Berlin. I was like, yeah, I'm definitely available. And they were like, this is normally the rate. And I was like, well, normally, I know you're sending me out for one night, but I normally actually clients send me out for 2 because I need time to prep. And these are my rates, generally. Not only did they take me out for 3 nights and paid for everything, but they also gave me the budget I was looking for and then booked me in for International Women's Day. After that, for about 3 months, it was really hard to get money. But what you did was you tested the product. So for me, it was more about testing on the job and iterating as you went along. That's just, I think, my style. I got testimonials, I tested out budgets, I kind of let them say or think or do what they wanted to do. I just followed up and facilitated. I was very transparent about the work that was being done. And then I realized that if that's the starting point that companies are paying for, I need to make sure that I've leveled myself up so that I can keep that going, or I can improve even more.
Remind me never to negotiate into you, Sonya.
I was going to say, there's like, now, I know that my mum is like a proper negotiator, and my brother's here, my fiance is, they both know. My mum's like proper negotiator. Now I think I've beaten some, I think Sonya has beaten her. You win, I've got a lot to learn from you as well.
My first job to my second job, I negotiated a 20k pay rise plus benefits because my ex-manager pissed me off and so she wouldn't give me more than 2% of the business. So I'm really fueled by just that extra challenge of what can I get out of this person that I think is fair. And yeah, it's probably because my dad used to take me to Sunday market every Sunday, right? So you have that like bargaining and banter inside of you. But I do think as an entrepreneur, as a hustler, you have to shoot your shot, you have to learn to take an L, you have to face rejections, but you also have to dream big and then let someone else kind of bring you back down to earth a little bit.
Baron Dhruvin, you're into stores like John Lewis, Selfridges. How do you possibly kind of get in front of these guys and what is their buying process like?
Yeah, it really varies. I think retail is one of those, for product businesses, it's where you want to go, right? When you create something, you want it to be in people's hands, and retail is that destination. So we're in John Lewis in the UK, Virgin Megastores in the UAE, and Nordstrom in the USA. Now, all of them have different channels there's different ways for each of them to get into those stores. So I'll talk about the most traditional way to get into retail. So they've got buyers. And interesting enough, at John Lewis, I even got the email today. I sent them an email in 2015 when the product wasn't even made to say, hey, can you put my products in your store? It took us, we got into John Lewis this summer, right? And the steps you have to do to get into that, it's not only, really convincing that buyer, but it's the trust signals your brand bring. I think everyone's very naive when you start. You think you can get into retail just being no brand, just starting a product. But if I look at how we were able to get into all the John Lewis stores, the first UK retailer for us to get into nationally is John Lewis, the best in my eyes that you can get in the UK with no other footprint in the UK in terms of multiple stores. It was because we lined up multiple brand equity and trust signals. So the year before we were in Dragon's Den, fast forward a couple of months, we had some other partnerships with employers, and then you're building this momentum. So when the buyers are coming back to you, they're saying, right, you've been in this PR, you've done this, and they're like, right, I think now is the time to give you that shot. So it is a moving piece, but you've got to really it's just building that momentum as a business, and you've got to be on each buyer, because buyers change every year, 2 years, or if you're really unlucky like us, that buyer that was in from 2015, who when I emailed and I took my shot, she was there for 5 years, so she would, she was like this person who typed me ages ago, we're not listing their products, but when she left, then it opened up an opportunity, and you're pitching and trying to get through.
So have you built up a relationship with buyers? Because I don't really know the retail world like that, but as much as you do clearly, but you built up relationships with buyers specifically over periods of time, and that's what got you into the door of these big retailers. Am I interpreting that?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, with John Lewis, we were taken onto a pitch with 6 buyers and pitched, and then the person that was the department lead, they actually left before we were launching the store, so they handed us over to 2 new buyers that completely knew nothing about us.
How do you meet them?
How do we meet? Oh, it's cold outreach. So we were doing a lot of LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is beautiful. So if you want to do any sales, like LinkedIn now is your place to go. But buyers' names are there. You can DM them, find their email, all of that jazz.
And was it similar for you, Baron, or?
Well, actually, it was a little different, and I think this is probably what Dhruvin was getting at, where with retail, obviously you have an objective as a business, but you often forget that the retail stores have their own objectives. So with John Lewis, I think they are more about, they'll have a team of buyers, and then they've obviously got sales targets. When we got into Selfridges, it's a little bit different because their whole experience, their whole proposition is all around giving people an experience who come into their store. Obviously, they've got like various brands that they sell lots of, but a lot of the stuff in Tulsa is very high value. It's very luxury. They don't actually expect most people who come through the door to buy it there and then. They expect it to be a bit of a showroom, a bit of an experience. And we were very fortunate because someone in their technology team actually reached out to us on Instagram. And I remember getting the DM because it went into our junk because we didn't follow each other, and I ignored it because I was like, what is this random guy talking about Selfridges? And then I think he followed up like 5 days later, and then I was like, okay, let me type this guy's name in on LinkedIn and see if it's a real deal. And it turns out he was from the tech team over in the technology department on the lower ground floor. And they said, we'd really like you guys to come in. Can we have a forge a deal? So I spent a few months sort of going back and forth, and then eventually we agreed terms with them. That was an incredible experience, actually. I mean, it was weird because they don't realise how small you are. I mean, if you're a startup, you are small, right? And you're essentially going into a store which has Samsung on one side and Apple on the other. And yeah, I'll never forget that day when me and my co-founder literally sent our products there in an Uber XL, and they've got this cinema down on the lower ground now, and we brought it in through the cinema, and it was a proper Indian job, right? This was we gave it the full, it's great. But just going back to what I was saying is, like for us, retail is very important because it acts like a showroom for our product. It's a high consideration purchase, so what people often do is they might discover it there, or they might see us online. They might then go and test it out, check it, see it, feel it, touch it, and then put in an order either there or online. So, and then to be honest, that's what a lot of D2C brands are doing these days when they're launching their own retail stores or pop-ups. It's for that same reason. So that was our experience, and we're doing something similar in Westfield in. End of next week, we're launching Westwood White City, so yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah, that's it from Sonya. What about you then?
What's the question? Because I just feel so inspired by their story. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just taking it all in as to what they've just done.
Yeah, that's it from Sonya. What about you then?
What's the question? Because I just feel so inspired by their story. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was just taking it all in as to what they've just done.
Yeah, so just talking about kind of getting in front of they were kind of in a retail setting, but I think for you, maybe it's not necessarily retail, but you're approaching businesses and enterprises, so how do you get in front of them? And you mentioned already some big things, so how do you get in front of such a big brand to eventually have them to pay you?
Yeah, you have to be your biggest salesperson. Like, I'm literally sitting here with my book for a reason. If you aren't going to be your cheerleader, nobody is, right? I'm a big believer of, how do I say this? I use social media in a way that benefits me, but I don't use it purely for new business sales because I don't sell a product. I am the service that I was selling to start with. When I first started, I was selling myself as someone that you can trust, and someone that's creditable, and that someone can come into your business, and that someone can help you change or transform. So I basically was selling my services. However, when I first started using LinkedIn in 2019, I had no clue what I was doing. When I started using Instagram in 2019, Facebook actually blocked me, and I had to start again from scratch in 2020. I don't know what it was, too many selfies, I'm not really sure, but I clearly didn't get the platform. And so I stopped putting the pressure on myself. For me, it wasn't about, hey, I'm Sonya and I'm looking for a job and I can help you. It was, hi, I'm Sonya and actually I've got an opinion on what's being said. I think that I can contribute to this article. This is the stats that have come out, regulation around diversity inclusion or the gender pay gap or anything of that kind. And these are some things that companies can do to look after their people. And so really what I was doing was I was listening to those people. I was taking notes and what are your problems? Thinking, okay, if someone is reading the article or someone is online, what is their problem going to be? And in a really quick snapshot, how can I add value to their life? So I was always adding value. It's never been about me. It's about how can I make your life easier? How can I make you look good? How can I add value? Then when clients started coming my way, I started going to a lot of networking events. If you ever follow me on socials, you know I'm everywhere and anywhere. I love to be, right? Because you have to show up as your salesperson, but also as a thought leader. And again, you're adding value. If I'm saying on panels, it's to help you. It's that when you go back and you remember one thing, you're like, you know what, she actually wants to really help us. Her business values are aligned. They want to help us too. There must be something. When I'm online, and I use social media a lot, so 85% of my business comes through social media. Until today, I haven't had to do outbound. I'm now learning how to do BD and cold reach because everything has been inbound, because you're adding value, because you're showing up in the spaces that you need to, because you're listening to people. And if someone's like, oh, actually, I had this problem, I will go and find that article. I will shoot it in the DMs and be like, you know what, you said this to me a couple of weeks ago. I've read something online that I think would be really relevant. And they'll be like, oh, she was listening. Okay, that's really interesting. Furthermore, during the pandemic, I had nothing to lose. I had no employer. I had no finances. I started this advisory business. So I was like, what's the worst that can happen if you start posting online? And so I just posted and posted, again, adding value. What can I do? I can help people how to public speak, because I have the confidence. I can build people's confidence. I can talk about mentorship. I can talk about diversity inclusion. And I can talk about starting a business from scratch. That's what I started posting. So now, as an example, last year for LinkedIn, out of all of LinkedIn users, UK and Europe, I was named as Changemaker of the Year. One of 8 people to have that title. The only brown person on that whole damn list. Out of all of UK and Europe for gender diversity. Why? Because I just posted and I just added value. This year, top voice and a blue tick. Last year, in 2020, because I was adding value and sharing tips, I had a publishing deal come along, which I said yes to. Last year, I had the BBC come along, which I said yes to. So I'm a big believer in saying yes to opportunities, learning as you go along, always adding value to people and giving them something back, not doing it for yourself. Getting testimonials and feedback, but always making it consumer and customer first. I'm all about the customer. And I think one thing I would just say is my driver when it comes to business is not profit. And I know that seems weird, but it's not. I will make money. I'm an immigrant child. Like, I will have to make money because I come from a working class background. I remember my parents not having a sofa. I have to look after them when they retire or as they get older, right? So that's a given. I will make money. But I want to live a life in which I can build the life that I want. So I love to travel. I want to go and find business abroad. I went to Kenya for 4 weeks in October. I actually went for a wedding. I found 5 clients out there and a YouTube series that I've started. Just because I emailed people and I asked, right? So it's about making the life that you want. I'm purpose-led, I'm people-led. The profit will follow because people will see that you're authentic and your intent. So I guess for me, it's slightly different. It's very similar in how you approach things because I think all your panelists are very similar, but it's more about using the skills that you already have and just putting yourself out there and seeing what comes your way.
Yeah, that's insightful. Thank you for that. I guess I just want to move the conversation forward a little bit and talk about growing and scaling your businesses. So we've got a couple of businesses here kind of in the B2C space, so a business to consumer space. So Varun, how do you think about kind of marketing from your kind of perspective? I mean, in the B2C space, marketing can be very expensive compared to, if you're selling to businesses. How do you kind of think about marketing and what do you do to kind of get the most out of your marketing budget?
Yeah, great question. I mean, by the way, as I said at the beginning, we're at an early stage where we're just launching as of next month. So some of these things we're still figuring out. But we ran a successful sort of pre-orders campaign. Look, for all the stuff people say, paid social and paid search, so Google, Instagram, and Facebook, are always going to be, well, at least for the foreseeable future, are going to be like the main channels that people use. It's just a way of trying to find it work. It's a case of trying to find a way to make it work for your particular business and your price point, right? There's a lot of talk nowadays about like everything's about the creative and how creative the ads are. That's largely pushed a big impetus around TikTok because TikTok is all about the quality of the content and you get ranked in the algorithm based upon how good and trend-worthy and interesting your content might be for people. So I know a lot of consumer brands are trying to figure out a way to leverage that the most at the moment. But actually, even like some of the biggest companies still don't really have any real strategy around it. Influencers have become so expensive. I mean, I think people think, you get a story from someone super famous. Maybe Sonya, maybe you could do a story for us, I don't know. But and suddenly, you get lots of sales. But those days are gone. I mean, You know, the influencers are charging about £1,500 for a story these days. And so it's very difficult to scale in there as well. Ultimately, I think what brands are doing is just a mix of all of those things and just figuring out what works and just being super smart on the creative. And then, of course, lastly, there's all the traditional channels, PR, word of mouth, referral schemes, which of course are very important for startups as well.
Yeah. And what about you, Dhruvin? From your perspective, Ocushield getting the most out of your marketing budget, is it been kind of a similar story in terms of using kind of social media out there, or have you used kind of different avenues?
Yeah, so for us, when we began, a lot of our sales was coming from organic traffic. So if you remember, I started at university, I put a landing page up on Wix. You know, I got our first 1,000 orders from people that I knew, so I got their emails. But I had the website up maybe 12, 18 months before we were doing any marketing. And what that told Google was, you know, these guys are the thought leaders for anything around blue light, artificial light. And that meant we were making money without doing any marketing, because that's organic, free marketing. And SEO is a brilliant marketing channel for anyone that wants to start a business, because you can start today and in 12 months you could be getting thousands of visitors to your website if you're selling products. So that formed a really good foundation for us, because we knew every month we'd get X amount of visits, traffic. So we can do stuff like conversion rate optimization, where we're making more use of that traffic to make sales. And then we started adding layers in. So the first channel we started marketing was Google PPC, because whenever someone has warm or high intent, you can bid on that keyword. So if someone types in blue light blocking glasses, we bid on that keyword, for example, because we know someone wants it. Whereas Facebook is the other layer that came afterwards. That's when we're saying, well, we've kind of scaled Google, because there's a finite amount of people searching without bids getting too expensive. But then you want to drive customers to you. So then we started on Facebook and Instagram and scaling that channel. TikTok we've tried, but it's a very as Varun said, it's the creative exhaustion is very fast. You need content all the time, and it's expensive because of the content generation and how much you need to spend to be profitable on that channel. But the one thing to note is you have to have, if you want to scale a business, you have to use one of these platforms like Google, Snapchat, or TikTok, because the amount of users they had, you can't reach them on other platforms.
So, Dhruvin, just as you're just saying that, like, I think there's product people like you built your own product. I know a few people here that built their own product, inventors, and so forth. I think there's like a different skill in marketing. It's so exhausting. When I was doing some online retail sales, and I'm thinking about my business, and I'm thinking about all this content I've got. It's exhausting. So how do you like even balance that? And you're in a product business as well. Like, how do you even balance? I can ask this to all three of you. How do you balance all of that business stuff, your skill set that you're offering, you're selling, versus all this TikTok video stuff? That's hard. Like, how do you go about that?
Yeah, you don't balance it. In short, but I think you just figure out what is your goal in that short term and long term. And if you're doing digital marketing, there's so many touch points, right? So I know our customers. They can see us on YouTube, they can see us on PR articles, they can see us in different ways. So I know when they then serve that Google ad, they're going to buy our products, right? So it takes time to put all that together. But I think you do short sprints when you're saying, right, we want to focus in on this area and make that work.
But I think one thing that you have to bear in mind, which both the panelists have said, is you have to know where your customer is. And they kind of made that clear, maybe not said it in that same sentiment. You don't need to be everywhere. It's not like spreading your seed, You're like, this is where my customer is and this is what I'm doing. I am, yes, outside a content creator, not by choice, but because that's the advisory business. I have to do the work, right, to prove I'm doing it. But I have a main channel, which is LinkedIn. I have a secondary, which is Instagram. And then my website is just there to prove that I exist. That's it. So my LinkedIn is my main channel, so I put my effort in there. I don't have any funky members of my team to do it because I would like that to be quite personal. And also word of mouth referral is always going to be the top notch. 85% of your business comes through word of mouth. So even though I'm here, there's 70 people here, what's the one thing you're going to leave them with? Even if it doesn't work today, they'll remember you in the future. Maybe they'll drive business. Maybe you can use some partnerships. Maybe you can work together. So that really is never going to get kind of lost and old. The problem with content creation, as someone who's a content creator, is it's noisy. It's so noisy. that yes, you're scrolling on TikTok for 3 hours, but if you can actually tell me about like dog or cat videos and what you remember, I don't think you can remember what products have come your way, right? It's just how things make you feel. And if you take that same sentiment in person or online, it's how people make you feel. And so when I started doing video content this year, which was around April, I was so scared of doing video content. My God, and I talk for a living, right? But I was like, who's going to watch my video content? So rather than overthinking it, which is what I was doing, firstly, and Dhruvin and I kind of spoke about this on LinkedIn too, no one teaches you how to be a manager or a leader. So that's like one thing you fully have to learn in a different way. The second thing is scaling means different things for different people. For me, scaling means that I'm now taking on 5 clients next year, but they're high ticket items. So from a lead and kind of a prospect perspective, that's taken me maybe 6 months to actually nurture them, get to know them, smooth them a little bit, and then sign it off. One actually took a year, right? Versus doing 10 small ticket items. That's how you can scale, that's how you can be sustainable. And as a service or rate, people want to work with me for me. I don't have 20 of me. So now I'm 1 day a week, as an example, this is my rate. You get to work with my senior staff members and my junior, who are leveling up. If you don't work with me, then it's my rates. And you just have to be really firm on that. So I think scaling also means different things for different businesses. And I don't have investment, and I chose not to. So I'm fully bootstrapped. So for me, it's a little bit of a different ballgame. But I think similarly, we're all saying, just know where your customer is and know what your customer wants. Don't just be on everything and think that it's going to be successful, because it probably won't.
Okay, great. Just thinking about when businesses grow now, so talking about hiring the first employee perhaps, and as your organisation grows, I'd love to get Varun's input on this, because you talked about how you joined a startup and you worked for free initially. What do you think, do you think that's a good way for people who might want to start a business to learn about startup culture? And then secondly, how do you think as potential employers, how you can entice people to join a startup? Because as we discussed earlier, it could be seen as a higher risk business. Joining a company where you have to get funding, or you're not fully funded yet. Does the product have traction? How do you think you can entice people to come join your startup?
Yeah, I mean, with that example, like working for free, that worked for me because I was only a year out of uni, so I didn't mind, 6 months working for free. But obviously, now I'm a bit older, it's a lot harder to do that. So I guess it depends where you are in your life, but if you can do that, it's a great way in, because to join a company when they're at that earlier stage, they're not going to have the funds to hire. They only want to hire people who've got really good experience or whatever. So if you can offer any sort of value as an intern or whatever, and you're willing to just sort of take that hit, it's a great way in, right, essentially. That worked for me. Now I'm on sort of the other side of the table. We had employee number 9 start today, and yeah, well, it's hard to manage people and build a business at the same time, right? But the one thing I'll say is that I think the current generation have more choice than ever of companies to work for, and it's actually really hard to hire really talented, good people. You think it's if you're offering them the salary level, that's enough, but it's not. You have to really build a culture that people want to work in, whatever that might be. And that's something as an early company we struggled with. I've been talking to so many people, so many other founders, and I'd love to hear about anyone in the audience who have any views as well on how you build a culture in today's sort of hybrid world. But it's very hard to hire really good people. But that could be the difference between an amazing business and a mediocre one, really.
And Drew, what about yourself from that perspective? How do you think you can entice people to join you on the Ocushield kind of journey? As your brand grows, do you think it becomes kind of easier for people to kind of trust you and where you're headed?
Yeah, definitely. I think, again, coming back to brand equity is, how can you entice people is, what are you doing as a business? Where are you? Where are they seeing you? What affiliations do you have? That gets people on board. But I think, with hiring, it's a really difficult one, because you're trying to figure out what the motivations are for that person joining your company. Is it just a stopgap, or are they there for the long term? Are they competent? Everyone's good at doing interviews, right? I'm sure we've all been there. You can you can say what you want in interviews, you can complete tests, etc. But until it's go time, it's difficult. And you then spend time with people, bringing them on board to your business, and then you've got to make hard decisions to get them out. There was something I read recently, which was hire slow and fire fast. And usually in startup land, you do it the other way around. You hire fast, and I've done it definitely in the past. And you fire slow. You're like they'll get there. But yeah, you really have to take that and build it into what you're doing. But at the same time, that culture part is how do you provide security for the team so they're not feeling on edge, but they can do the best work possible and collaborate and have a thriving environment. And it's really tough at the moment because we've gone back to fully remote work. So now I'm doing things like Friday energizers with people hosting things on Zoom for people to make pasta and stuff for the team to bond over, just really weird stuff. And I don't know if people like it, but you're just trying to build some sort of momentum culture with the team. But yeah, it's difficult at the moment.
So most of seem to bring people into
That's good. If I give you some stats, right? So the average person between the age of 18 to 34 now stays in their job between 18 months to 2 years. 80% of millennials and Gen Zs want to work for a business that's purpose first. 70% of individuals are happy to take a pay cut or work for a lesser salary if there's a purpose-driven business. Purpose-driven means kind of aligning it to the UN's SDG goals. On top of that, if your business is more sustainable in whichever way, it can actually increase revenue and share profit by 10%. But on top of that, 1 in 4 people want to be entrepreneurs, and 1 in 3 people already have a side hustle. So if you just think about those stats, you can't beat the system. You need to kind of play that game in a way that works for your business. So an example being, I have 7 remote workers. We're remote for that reason, so that we are all over the world. So one's in Mexico, one's in Greece, one's in Kenya, one's in India. My dev team and 1 team member's in Pakistan and 1 in the Philippines. So we can globalize it, so we understand what's happening trends-wise, and we can localize it. That means that when I'm sleeping, my girl in Mexico is working. So that means when I wake up, some of the work is already done. So we've done that way. We also work on task-based, not time-based. What I mean by that is when we need to work, we will all put the hours in. But summertime, I'm not asking you to work when the sun's out because I don't want to work when the sun's out. So I'm like, actually, when the sun's out, go and enjoy yourself and play because you need, Ocushield will be telling you, you need that sunlight. And then when you come back, you're more energized. We also make sure that during December we have 2 weeks off, and during the summer we all have 2 weeks off. We start implementing a reading week every quarter, which means for a week we don't talk to each other, and we just focus on one topic and level up. And then we come in the next week and we upskill one another. And the most important thing is, I know my team members want to start a business one day. I know it. They've told me. I want them to tell me so that I'm not like, oh my God, you've left me to start a business. So what we do is we work on a basis of you work with me 4 days a week or and the tasks that you need. The extra day I will help you find a client. So each of my team members, I've helped them find extra clients so they can bulk up that extra money because I'm a startup, maybe I'm not able to give them what they deserve or what they need. But we're very honest. My team love the work we do. They will not leave unless they really have to. And even then I just had a conversation with one of them today and I was like, look, she's going through something at home. I was like, okay, I'm going to help you find a sustained, proper job. And she's like, are you good with that? I was like, yes, because it's more important that I do that for you, and then you can come back and do the work. But of course, when you're scaling and you have investment, there is a need, right? So the way to do that is to have a company playbook, to have a policy, to basically get everyone aligned on that and signed on that, to have regular check-ins, to have appraisal meetings, and anything they do extracurricular, see how you can help them in their career progression. Because people aren't just in it for the money right now, they're in it for the learning and development. That's more important to them statistically. And if anybody here is like, where's the stats coming from? I'll send you them, right? That's what they're focusing on, so how can you embrace that? Because money's tight. That's it, that's the reality. Money is tight. And as much as, apparently Sunny's got lots of money because he likes whiskey. Money is tight, so it's how do you make do with everything else that maybe isn't financial compensation, because you can get more money. Yeah. And then you're like, oh, now I want more money and more money. Because, greed gets to us. So what else can you do for them?
That's great. Really interesting. I just want to ask the room, in today's, where we are today in the economy and how things are going, who would actually consider joining a startup, let's just call it early to mid-stage startup versus an established organisation? Hands up, who would consider joining a startup these days?
Send me your CVs.
Yeah, we've got 3 employers here. So
Are you hiring?
at least 3.
Are you hiring?
For the right person.
Startups are always hiring.
It's
Even when they say they're not, you just apply.
Hiring's
Yeah.
slow, but might be firing fast. Cool, awesome. Let's just move on a bit because we're running behind on our sort of agenda. So let's just talk about where we are today, right? So in terms of our business now and looking into the future, let's start with Sonya. What are your immediate challenges or hurdles are you trying to overcome right now? Let's just.
I am my biggest challenge. If I'm going to be really honest with you, it's me. I am the biggest challenge. I tell you why, not because of any other reason than as a startup owner, you are so ambitious and you are so driven and you want to dream big that you actually get so excited by things that are happening. You can't help it. That's one of the reasons people start businesses is they can see a problem. Right? They're like, oh, I can fix that problem too. I can help you there. I can help you there. And it's because as a startup, I'm super ambitious anyway. So I'm like, I just want to do everything and help everyone. So for me, one of my challenges is actually scaling back, not scaling up, and just making sure that I'm focused and I'm filtered. So the way that I do that is I've now structured my days. Like on Monday, I'm a BBC presenter. On Tuesday, I'm an author. On Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday, I work on my business. I also only take client calls on 3 days of the week, and the other days I don't, so I'm really structured it accordingly. The second thing is one of the challenges is clients don't have budgets. They don't have the budgets that they had before for consultancy or advisory because it's a nice to have, not a necessity. And they might have internal consultants, or you've got the big four that are just going out and grabbing everyone, right? Whatever the problems are there. So what do you do to make yourself look different? It's not always about the budgets and the unique selling point. It's can you go into their offices as an example once a month, which they're really keen on, right? Can you have coaching calls with them? Can you invite them to a round table, which people love, like exclusive invites? What can you do for them? So there are budget constraints. Okay, that's fine. How do I still nurture those clients and get those clients and let them think about me in the future? Or how do I get them to invite me to other people or recommend me? And I think the third thing we spoke about earlier, challenge is people are all struggling. And I don't mean that in like a, everything is circular. We are heading into a recession, if not we're already in one. There is a cost of living crisis, everything is getting more expensive. So you have to treat people like humans. So when I have a phone call, and I kid you not, when I'm having a phone call with my colleague, I'm like, listen, am I talking to you as your manager or as your mentor? And I ask that question. Because sometimes as the manager, they don't want to tell me stuff, but as a mentor, they're like, this is what I'm struggling in. And I take that back. And you have to be honest with people. So one of my team members, she's not having a great time, we're not able to give her what she affords. I'm like, I'm going to help you find that stable job. Yes, I'll have a gap, but that's important to me to help you do that because it aligns with our business values and our kind of boldness. So those are the three, right? Money's always going to be tight, and it's getting tighter. It's how do you make do with what you have, and then you scale back as a spender as well, whatever that means for you. But you said be honest. I'm pretty honest about most things anyway.
Yeah, let's. What about Dhruvin and Varun? Let's just go through this.
So where are we at now?
Yeah, immediate challenges or hurdles, and how are you trying to overcome it?
As a business, last financial year we turned over 1.9 million and we raised just under £1 million last December. So we were very much so on, right, we've got all the money, let's scale the business, we've got working model, scalable channels, etc. We put more money into Facebook. This year, January to April, CPMs, which is cost per impressions, went through the roof, so we spent 3 times faster than we would. Conversion rates also dropped. I mean, now looking at it in hindsight, there's seasonality within our business. Within any DTC business, you have Q4 is busy, like right now it's busy, Black Friday, Christmas, etc. January to February is good, but then it tails off March to August. So we spent it at the wrong time, but also all our products that we were launching launched later because we launched eye supplements, an eye mask product, and we were going to launch an eye spray for dry eyes, but raw materials due to the war, we couldn't make it happen. So what we were trying to plan was product launches when you have quieter months, but we couldn't do that, so all our new products launched in September. That means as a business this year, we our turnover is now 2.5 million. It's modest growth in the environment where we're at. Obviously, we wanted to do something a lot higher, so that's been challenging for us as a business. So we've now got those new products with us, and we are now seeing our customers buying the other products. But for us now, the challenge is how can we've got our hero products, but how do we get all our customers to buy everything else we're creating? And as consumer spending softens, we are also diversifying our sales channels. So we've just created and launched an online eye test for employers. So we're now going deeper into B2B because, as Sonya was saying, listen to your customers. We are selling our products to Puma, JP Morgan, Facebook. I questioned 10 HR directors and chief of staff, said, what do you do for your teams when it comes to eyes? And they all said, like eye care plans or claim back for eye exams. But the adoption rate of eye exams was really low. It's like 2 to 3%. So we thought, how can we encourage employees to test their eyes, because everyone's using screens, but you're not doing anything about it. So we created the solution, and we now launched that into the market. And I'm glad to say we signed our first intermediary, which means we'll be serving 100,000 lives that will be using the eye test solution. And we signed that last week, which is fantastic for us because we will now be fundraising in the new year, and it means we've got now a customer for our new product, which we can say, right, we've not just built a product, we've also got a customer, which we can then raise funds from. So yeah, that's a bit on where we're at and current kind of challenges.
Cool. Brilliant.
Yeah, I'll keep it brief. I mean, our challenges are twofold. One is, before we were just a fun bootstrapped company, right? Just as I said, sitting in the boxes selling treadmills. Then suddenly you raise investment and everything changes, because now you suddenly have this runway where you've got 18 to 24 months to show something to help you raise your next round, or you're dead, or you can just run the business as just a profitable break-even business. But frankly, startups are either growing or they're dying, and that doesn't normally work when you're a technology company. So for us, we've got a runway now. I've given everyone in the team like one goal that they have to reach, which is like a certain number of orders per month. And then the plan is to leverage that to our next round of funding, hopefully next year. So that's basically our challenge, is making that happen. It's just super simple. But as I touched on in the last point, the other challenge, and it's something I'm struggling with personally, is when you actually have a team of people, how do you motivate them? How do you get the best out of them? How do you build a company culture? We had our first team social last Friday, and it was like a school disco, right? I was trying, guys on one side and the girls. Well, we really had two ladies in the team, but we were trying to get everyone, to interact and do something. And it's something that I'm very passionate about, is making sure we build an environment where people feel inspired and they feel like they're doing their best work, they're doing their best life's work. So it's something I'm very passionate about, and that is a challenge that internally we're working through.
All right, thank you so much for that. Sonya, do you want to ask our all-important question that we ask all our guests on our podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So, to all our panel members, if you could invite 3 guests for Chai, living or otherwise, who would they be and why? And Dhruvin, since you're closest to me, let's kick off with you.
3, okay. First would be Cristiano Ronaldo.
Quite topical right now.
Not because of that, but I'd love to learn about that. But no, I think his work ethic is quite incredible. I mean, he's achieved so much, but he's still going at 37. And I think he cried today when he was lining up to play for Portugal, because I think it matters so much to him that he wants to accomplish even more. So that would be one of the guests. Second would probably be my grandfather. So I didn't get to meet him. He passed before I was alive, but my dad has always told me lots of great things about him. I mean, back in the day when our parents were travelling on ships, for months. I mean, I don't know how they did it. I can't even sit on a plane for like 6 hours, let alone be on a ship for that long. But yeah, some incredible stories that I want to learn. Third, probably Michelle Obama, because when I listen to Barack Obama, how well he speaks about how she supported him through his journey, and then I've listened to Michelle Obama and what she talks about. It's just so inspiring. And I think, obviously, being presidential, we also learn a lot, right? So there'll be some key things I can answer, which she can probably shed some light on. So they'll probably be my 3 lists.
Great. Sonya?
Drake. Just Drake. Not for any other reason than I think musically we all know him. He's made a brand, he's got brand equity, he understands his customer, he keeps adapting, he's innovating, he's bringing in the next generation, he's built a business venture and kind of, adapt in a different way. So it's more the business hustle, which maybe we don't see in the front, but if you think about it, at 30-something, he's still relevant. And he was still relevant, 15 years ago. And his music is like classic to some extent. So there is a reason why he's a household brand. How do you kind of sustain that? I would also like to invite the founder of Bumble. So Whitney Wolf, she, I think, has a great story. Not only has she built an empire, which started from a really bad experience, so she herself faced a lot of harassment in the workplace and actually got unfairly dismissed, and then used her savings or that she gained from the unfairly dismissal to create kind of Tinder's competitor. She used to work at Tinder. And I think it's the transformation not only of a business idea, but also the tech that she's incorporating and how she's helping change laws and regulations, which is the next level of tech, right? Because not only are you building something that's sustained as a model and is global, but also now you're helping to change the laws that come with it. And I think lastly, Oprah, for no other reason than when you hear her story, she herself has been in situations in which she's had to conform, and when she hasn't conformed, she's been let go. And one of my dreams in life eventually is to have my own talk show. So for me, it's more of just a selfish invite to be like, so what did you do after that? What did you do after that? And how did you get it? And what did you do? And, just to take inspiration from someone who hasn't let her own failures, her own or kind of those of other people let her down from a resilient standpoint, and how you've always actively shot your shot so that you can become a household name. And, for me, not only am I passionate about running and scaling a business and helping my tech to change people's lives, but eventually I want to become a household brand. I do. I want people to know me, my name, what my ethos is, and kind of, have my own kind of version of a talk show on TV at some point. So I think that's why I bring all these people into play.
Great. And Varun, who would you like to have try with?
Yeah, tricky one. Well, that's quite easy. It has to be our boy Rishi Sunak. And he will enjoy the tea as well, no doubt. One really, really important thing actually, which he's doing is, and there has not been too much attention over it, is in April of next year, SEIS investment, the tax relief is going to go up from 150k to 250k, and I remember when we were fundraising, the first 150 is the easiest. Nothing's easy, but that is easier because people want to know. And if you want to raise money, 250k is not a small amount, and it should help a lot more companies go forward. We probably won't discuss that over tea, but certainly. The others, look, I'll be honest, there's a number of people, right? Richard Branson obviously is a name that I look up to a lot. Jeff Bezos, I highly recommend reading. There's a book called The Everything Store, which is basically, he's not written an autobiography, but it's as good enough as an autobiography of Jeff Bezos and how he actually started Amazon as a small startup. But I'll leave it there. Yeah.
Great. Okay, so there are all the questions from us now. I guess I'm going to hand it over to Andy.
Yeah. All right. So we've got a few minutes, and what I would love us to do is have a bit of a Q&A. So for a few minutes, you can ask absolutely any question to myself or Sunny or our wonderful panelists here. So if you have a question, put your hand up. I'll run over to you. I'll pass the mic, and you can ask a question. Okay.
All in one, right?
Well, I'm Harjit Sangha. I'm actually here because I know Sunny personally, and actually went to University of Dhruvin, so it's nice to see you again.
You've already done your uni medicine.
My question is more for Sonya and Dhruvin, just because you guys have more, established businesses, and Dhruvin, you said you're more in the launch phase. Knowing what you guys know now about going through the experience of launching your own brands and new products, is there anything that you guys would do differently? And it could be nothing, but Just interested to hear.
So, great question. Do you guys get that? Yeah?
No.
What would I do
I want to see what your answer is first, actually.
I would probably spend less time working in the business. So I remember this period when I think I went full time on the business, and for 12 months I was busy picking and packing orders. And it was only after an advisor told me, like, what you're doing, you should be working on the business, not in the business. And we could afford it. So mistake on my side, but I think once I saw that mistake, I think everything then became clear. It's like, if there's anything that's taking too much of my time but doesn't have a net positive impact value, I need to find someone else to do it, because I need to focus on working on the business, the vision, strategy, etc. So I think, identifying stuff like that earlier would have helped me a lot scale the business faster.
I think mine's the opposite. I think mine's work in the business. I work on the business quite a lot because you can go out and about when you're advisory, but working in the business means getting the processes right, getting the Google Docs in place, knowing your emails, getting your domains, not having a robot stole one of my domains and now it's on sale for $50,000. Like, that's a real story, because I wasn't smart enough to do my sense check when my bank card was renewing, so was my website domain. That's on me. That's cost me a rebrand, a new logo, and that's a stupid mistake that I could have, stopped. So think about the process of the foundations, who you're sharing email passwords with, who you're getting into your business, why people are supporting you. Don't just take the first person that comes and helps. And if they aren't giving you help, you guide them as to what help you need, and then see if they can fit that mold. Versus in the beginning, I was like, "What, you want to help me?" As if they were doing me this massive favor, and I just let them do what they want. Second is there have been moments where I wouldn't say I've given up myself, but I'd say I haven't given enough time on something to see if it really works. So give yourself a fair chance. So a great example being if that we launched a mentoring program in 2020. I think I just started getting imposter syndrome. I was like, why would somebody want to do it again in 2021? And then in 2022 we charged money for it and people paid, and I was like, why would they want to do it again? So try something at least now. Have a rule of 3 before we do something. So we're like, right, if that's 3 months of waiting, that's 3 weeks of waiting, if that's 3 yeses before I say yes, or if it's kind of trying something 3 times and seeing what the testimonials are. And the last thing would just ask for help from your mentors and advisors. Get mentors and advisors early on, and that could be people in your network. So my ex-CFO is a great mentor, and a lady I met at a conference is a great mentor, and they showed me how to do expenses, they got me an accountant, they got me legal individuals. So ask people that are already in that process for help, and don't be afraid, because people actually really do want to share stuff.
That's great. Thank you. All right. Hi, I'm Aman. I work in transaction services as a professional advisor. My question is more for Dhruvin and Varun. So you both work in highly competitive D2C environments. What do you do, and how do you differentiate yourselves and your products versus everything else that's out there in the market?
I'll start. So, I guess there's 2 things here. So the first thing, you mentioned D2C. So, it's an interesting stat that over the pandemic, there was obviously this big push into D2C e-commerce, right? Like, people were buying online who had never really engaged before. But actually, when you look at the statistics, only about 20% of all retail is currently online. So that means 4 out of 5 things you buy out there in the world are still in physical stores. They're not actually online. So, and in the US, I think it's closer to 12%. So we've actually got the most of e-commerce, and that big D2C drive is actually ahead of us. It's not behind us. So I think that's the first thing to bear in mind when you think about how big is the market. Well, your market you're in is probably a certain size, but that market's growing, right? Obviously depending on what you're doing, but I know our market's growing, for example. So that's the first thing I'd bear in mind about any D2C brand. The other is, look, you do need to have your unique value proposition and whatever it is that makes you unique. For us, we're a technology company, we're not a fitness company. Everything we're doing is in AI, and that's really where our core is. It's very difficult to replicate what we do. We had to raise a lot of money to do what we to get it out to market, and it's taken a year and a half. But also that's our moat, right? That's what makes us special. That's where our value is. When we sell the business, that's ultimately what we're selling. So really you have to focus on what your USP is, right? And often if you're a technology business, it's tech, right? Uber is not a cab company; it's a technology company. Same with Airbnb. So it's about what that technology is that you can ultimately sell on.
For myself, first and foremost, it's all about product. I think you've got to have an awesome product. It doesn't have to be straight off the bat. It's first bring something to life and then reiterate, and then you'll have an awesome product. Because without an awesome product, the business fails. And you need those testimonials to then bring on other people. It's like that herd mentality. If other people know that your product or your service are doing well, they're going to be more likely to adopt or buy it. And then again, the brand equity for us, so we're in a really competitive space when it comes to blue light blocking glasses, screen filters, or even general eye care products, eye supplements, eye masks. The reason why our customers come to us is we've been able to build a moat around the brand. So as a business, we're registered with the Department of Health, so all our products are medical devices, class 1. We're registered as an FDA establishment in the USA. We just got B Corp certification, so we're sustainable not just from a product point of view, but from a customer, employer, and community point of view. So all these things add a bit of flavour to the business. And when people are looking at you from outside in, they'll go, okay, I resonate with this, and I'm going to buy from them versus a brand that isn't developed by healthcare professionals or doesn't have that kind of same moat around them.
Correct. Thank you. I think we've got time for just one more question, right? So we're running out of time, so here we go.
Yeah. I'm Burris. I work in investment management and went to university with Sonya as well. So clearly, I thank you guys for your time today. So I really value the insights you've given us. My question may be a bit of a softer one. What is an example of a belief that when you perhaps started or went down this route or road that you have that you held at the beginning of your journey, that now with the experiences you've had, that you no longer hold or have changed that belief or evolved that belief today?
It's a great question.
Mine is it's simple. I think when I began, I thought everything would happen tomorrow. I just learned patience, and compounding is a beautiful thing. Just do great things, and they just take a little bit longer than you expect. So don't expect it tomorrow, but just be patient.
I think for me, it's probably having. I valued the business and the people in it. As I said, I'm an employee today, so I looked at them as the support network. But actually, what I realised and what I wish I'd known at the beginning is how important the support network is outside of the office. Having a great partner is very important, and managing that. Not being scared to hire a therapist or a coach to move, and there's a lot of stigma about those types of things, but I have both, and I think it's very important to just be vulnerable where you need to be, and just be very open about your problems. So I think someone said it earlier as well, be open to asking for help, because having that support network when you go home after the office is just as important as what's happening in the office.
I completely agree with both of them. So my one would be, in the beginning, I just didn't think I was good enough. I thought I was confident, I knew I could do something, but I didn't think I was enough to just lead my business. I thought I needed extra people, co-founders or ambassadors or support, not support networks, but people in the business, because I was too afraid to say this is my business and I am the business, and not make it about me, but that I'm the founder. In the beginning, I was hungry searching for a co-founder or a partner, because I thought I wasn't good enough to do it by myself. And I fell into a lot of really terrible partnerships, cost me a lot of money legally, and I did. And we can talk about that another time, because I can't say that on the recording. But now, it's more about the compound effect of you've had an idea for no reason, you've made something out of it for no reason, and it's still here. Something you're doing must be good enough. And so it's about taking a step back and being like, right, when I went to that first challenge, we spoke about money in the beginning, like Dhruvin said, what did I do this for? How did I overcome this problem? So I think it's that and not letting your ego get in the way. I do think when you get to a certain C-suite founder level, you have a little bit of ego, and you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to do this task. When you start feeling like that, you should go back to basics, but you should know that you are good enough in whatever you need to do, and you will learn capabilities, and you will learn skills, and you will grow, but like, you need to be solid in yourself.
That's good. All right, thank you. Sorry we didn't have enough time to ask more questions. But thank you again for those. I thought that last question was just like the cherry on the top, I think, for a lot of us. Thank you again for listening. Can you all pull your phones up for a second? We've got a QR code. We'd love your feedback. Just for the next 2 minutes, if you can scan that, the screen's on the the right-hand side of you as well. We would love for you to fill in this 60-second, maybe even less than that, 20-second survey, just so we can improve the experience and give you, hopefully something that's even more interesting in the future. Let's do that.
Yeah, exactly. While people are doing that, I guess we just want to say also there's QR codes on the back, so please feel free to follow us on how many platforms are we on now? So Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube,
TikTok, but we're not very good at that yet.
TikTok.
We're just inspired.
I'm dancing, I think, before we go over TikTok. But yeah, please feel free to follow us on those. We're available. Our podcast is available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple.
All of them.
All of
I
them.
don't know how many.
Yeah, exactly. So please feel free to follow us on there. Also, if you've taken any pictures tonight or would like to post about us, please feel free to tag Business Over Chai. We would really appreciate that. You can help us grow our business, business side hustle, whatever you like to call it. We'd really appreciate that as well.
Yeah. So as you're wrapping up on your service, our heads are still down. Thank you so much. How do you guys feel after that?
Alright, a bit hungry and thirsty.
Well, we've got tons of samosas, and we've got probably not too long left in this evening. So if you want to grab one, maybe a box through and say who's going to take
You're going to take one of them, actually.
Yeah. He's trying to stay fit though. He's got
Remember, connect with all of us on socials, ask any questions. I would say everyone's learning style is very different, so in this moment, if you didn't have a question or you need time to think about it, I'm sure all of us are available, and I speak on behalf of all the panel to say that we are.
Yeah.
I can't help it, I'm a facilitator at heart, so...
So can we say thank you to these guests? Can we give them a round of applause?
Thank you.